Hi, it's me. Thanks for being early. Hi and welcome. Find the chat box if you can. The check-in question, I like to usually, come up with some kind of silly question. I'm going to just paste it at the top. I'm going to change the sticky note. What's great about your life right now? What's great about your life right now? That's my check-in question for this afternoon, Wednesday, April 29th. Let's get some positive vibes going in the room. My new dog, peace and solitude. Wow, dad recovered from coronavirus. That's awesome. I want to celebrate you. Learning piano. These are coming way too fast. I mean, not that it's your fault. Living in a place where I can go outside. I love this. The sun. Cooking creative quarantine dinners. I love it. Staying home with family. More time to relax. I've been hearing that half the students that I talk to are like, I've got so much more time. And the other half are like, oh my gosh, I've been busier than ever. Sleep and food. Chocolate chip cookies. I love that, Joelle. You got a puppy. Cool. So I've been hearing about pandemic puppies. Friends getting those. I'm glad you got your homework done. Free tutoring. That's awesome, Rishi. Love it. Well, welcome. Welcome, and I'm glad you're here. My name is Ethan, and if you've never met me before, I'm hoping that I will make the best of your time. We're gonna pause the chat, so we're gonna disable it until the end for the Q&A, because it could be that what I end up covering in this 30 minutes will end up answering your questions. But if not, at the end, I'm going to give a book away to my favorite question. So I'll say more about that in a few minutes. So hi and welcome, and I hope life is good for you. And let me share my screen. So I'm calling this planting seeds for your college application and essay journey. Notice I'm saying planting seeds. I'm not saying like quick, let's do it all, because hey, we got a lot to do. Life is happening right now. So planting seeds, we're getting started here. If you've never met me before, just the quick intro. I went to Northwestern, go Cats, got an MFA, got some counseling certificates. I basically went to 17th grade, and I'm a pretty good free throw shooter. That's my intro. I'm known for giving away free stuff on my website, which you may know. There's a scholarship that you can also find out about on my website for free one-on-one essay help. If you identify as low-income student, we pair you with another counselor and you can get free application help. I'll email you that link following this webinar. And I wrote some books. I wrote this book, College Essay Essentials, which came out a few years ago. And I wrote another book over the last few years that's coming out in July. It's called College Admission Essentials. So even if you do know me, you might not know that about me. Or you might be listening to this and being like, yeah, I helped with that book because I had so many admission counselors working with me on that book. So if you're on and you help me with that book, thank you. And this is my amazing daughter, Zola. I'm a dad. I don't put pictures of my wife up because I don't think she wants me putting pictures of her, but my daughter doesn't mind as much. Okay, so here's what I'm going to cover. We're going to do a little exercise that will help you discover what matters to you. And then I'm going to say a little bit about why I think that's important in this process and also in life. This is what I do when I say life. I hold up my hand. 2 things that you can be focusing on right now. So one of the things that I talked about last week with Susan is like, there's so much that we can't control right now. And right. And then there are some things we can control. And I want to share with you 2 things that I feel like you can control. And then I'm going to share with you like a bunch of college application tips and resources. And I'm emphasizing for when the time is right, because the time is not now to jump into all of these things. Right now, I'll tell you what I think you should be focusing on right now in just a minute. And then I'll give you a timeline so you can actually know when to be doing these things. I'll do a little 30-second PSA, blink and you'll miss it, for my Pay What You Want summer courses. Again, pay what you want. And then I'll do a little Q&A. And then we'll re-enable the chat. And I'll give away a free book. I'm going to give away a book, my upcoming book, to whoever asks my favorite question. I don't know what that question is going to be. You're not having to guess a question. I'm going to name one question, be like, that's the question, you get the free book. All right. So here's what the college application process looks like. So here you are. You've had all of these experiences and moments and magical, memories. And the question for the college application is, how do you take all of this awesomeness, all of who you are, and map it onto these gray boxes, right? You got the personal statement that's really big because it's going to take you a lot of time, but also because I'm a college essay guy and I think it's pretty important. Your activities list. You've got the additional information section, which we'll talk about. GPA, test scores, course rigor, right? These are all the things that are going into your application. So what we're going to cover, I'm going to kind of dip into each one of these just briefly and give you some tips for each one of them. And then once you do that, once you sort of, or rather to get into this process, to do this, we do what I call the preliminary sort. And what that means is we figure out what are all the puzzle pieces, the parts of me, and then how do I then figure out which part of me goes into which part of the application? And there's a little step-by-step process that I do. First, figuring out what goes in the activities list, additional info, why us? Then your extracurricular essay, if you're writing one. And then there are some supplemental essays that lots of schools will ask for. And then there are, potentially a video. Most schools won't ask for a video, so don't worry about it. And then once you've done with that process, this is just kind of like how the process goes. You want to make sure your application is doing its job. And I'll give you a resource for that in a little bit. And then you end up with this beautiful, perfect application that's got all these perfect, neat little boxes. It's so satisfying to look at that. All right, but before we even get into the application, let's do a little exercise. So in talking about you, I want to get to know you a little bit. So what I want you to do is if you go to the where it's called the sticky message at the top of the page, there's this little, I'm going to paste this little values exercise. So what do I mean by this? Take a look at the page that's on the screen right now. It's called the values exercise. And what I want you to do is I want you to identify your top 10 values. So take a look at these. And if you look into the sticky message, you'll see a little link. And also I'll paste it in the chat box. If you can't see what's on my screen, it's the same thing. But I want you to spend 2 minutes right now, and I want you to make a list on your own of your top 10 values. You can do this on a piece of paper, you can pull out your phone, you can type, whatever is easiest for you. What are your top 10 values? And you've got 2 minutes. Do this now. And if you're a parent or a counselor that's listening, I want you to do it too, because this changes. It changes day to day and week to week. If you're wondering, should I do it for right now or for my life or for this week, you decide. I'm just calling it your top 10 values. Your top 10 values. This is important. That's why I'm spending a couple minutes with it. I'm going to do this too. We've got about a minute left. If you just joined us, welcome. We're making a list of our top 10 values. So far, I've made the list. Creativity and stability have made my list. I might run out of time. You got about 30 seconds. Okay. That may not have been enough time to get 10. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I only got 8. I want you to take however many you've got, and I want you to whittle it down to your top 5. Do this now. You got 30 seconds. Just mark whichever ones are the most meaningful to you, your top 5. All right. You got your top 5. Now take your top 5 and take your top 5. I'm going to start talking with an accent from North Carolina, y'all. All right. Take your top 5 and make it a top 3 list. What are your top 3 values? You got 10 seconds. And circle them or whatever you want. You can underline them. All right. Now, this is the hard part. Now pick one. What's your number 1 value for today? All right. I'm going to come back to this. So you don't have to do anything with this right now. But the question you might be wondering is like, what does this have to do? Like, why are values even important? And so their values are important, I think, for a few reasons. Number 1 is that they can act as a compass for letting you know what's important to you, and they can help you make decisions. Okay. So for example, if I'm trying to make a decision about, well, what should I do today? How do I spend my time? Should I do this or should I do this? I can come back to my values and go, okay, well, what's really important to me? And by doing a little check-in, and I love to do this, I do this pretty often. I mean, every couple months or so, it sort of gives me my North Star. Also, in the college application process, it can help me make decisions in terms of what colleges I'm looking for, or what classes I want to take, or what goes in my activities list, or what goes in my personal statement. And so values, even though it's something that's kind of like, I don't know, cheesy, I think some people see it as kind of like a thing that old people talk about. I'm now one of those old people. I think they're a really great way of doing something tangible, and a few different tangible things. So the first thing that I think you can be doing right now is beginning to develop your college list. Okay. Now, when it comes to developing your college list, we talked about that. It can be tough because you're like, well, how do I figure out what colleges to apply to? And like, how is this pandemic going to affect everything? That's an important question. Is the pandemic going to affect colleges and enrollment and stuff? Yes. Can we control that? Not necessarily. What we can do is look inward and go, okay, well, what's important to me? And there's a wide range of things. And in order to do that process, what resources can I use? One of my favorite resources, if you look in the top left corner, is called Coursava. You can go to their website, and this will be in the links that I share with you at the end. And you can basically go through this little 10-minute questionnaire that's going to help you figure out what are your must-haves, what are your would-be nices, what are your don't need them, and what are your no ways. So here's my list, Ethan, that I did in 2018, 2 years ago. And it generates this cool PDF, and it gives you a sense of what you're looking for. And it's free. Okay, so head over to Coursava. This is part of a longer resource on how to develop your college list, but it's a really great one. A great thing. It takes you 10 minutes to start figuring out what you're looking for, i.e. your values. You can see some of mine here. Design my own major. That points to one of my values of autonomy. Collaborative environment. That's an important value for me. Collaboration. Dance, music, criminal justice, right? You can see some more of my values in there. But it does it in the frame of the college search. Okay. Also, in the resource that I'll share with you, I put together a podcast called How to Create a Great College List. And one of the things that I recommend is organizing your research with what you're looking at. It's like basically a downloadable spreadsheet that I'll send to you. And there are some links at the top of that spreadsheet that'll walk you through places that you can go. Once you understand what you're looking for, oh, cool, here are some different websites that I can go to find schools, figure out what schools might be right for me. Okay, I'm going to send you all that, but I just wanted to sort of flag this for you so you can kind of see, okay, cool. This is the thing that I think you can be doing right now, even while I think the most important thing to be doing is focusing on finishing strong, getting grades, getting good grades, getting your APs finished or finals, all that stuff wrapping up. But some students are like itchy to get started. I think don't start with your essays yet. I think you can start developing your list. You can do this in kind of a light way. And these are two of my favorite resources for doing that. The other thing that you can start doing, if you want to right now, is career exploration. Some of you maybe have already started this. Some of you might be like, oh my gosh, I have no idea what I want to do. Two of my favorite resources for doing this are, one, there's this book called Do What You Are that you can get. You can get the older version on Amazon for like $1 or like $4, depending on how many people go away and order it. And then Use Science is an awesome test. It takes 90 minutes, but it tests your interests and aptitudes. And based on the things that you like to do and are good at, it gives you a list of potential careers and lets you sort of research them. Do What You Are works with Myers-Briggs. You do a little personality assessment that takes 10, 15 minutes. It's like a self-assessment. And then based on that, you look at different careers that might match up with you based on the things that, based on your personality, your Myers-Briggs, as it were. So those are two things that Do What You Are might take you an hour to go through the test and then just sort of the assessment rather, and start looking through the different careers. Use Science is going to take you at least an hour and a half to do the assessment. So it takes a little bit longer. If this stresses you out and the thought of doing this right now is way too much, don't do it. Wait till after testing, wait till after APs, wait till the start of the summer. I just want to share these resources. In terms of the order of operations of stuff that you can be thinking about right now, I think these are two good things. Okay? I'm just going to pause there because what I'm about to share with you might overwhelm you because I'm going to share with you so many resources. And I just want you to think of it as like a nice buffet. But if you're full right now, you do not have to touch anything on the buffet because all of these resources and all this stuff, you have plenty of time. You don't need to stress about the college process right now. Okay? So let's just pause, check in. Ethan's going to say some stuff in a minute. You can just let it go past you, or you can take it in and go, oh, that's cool, that's cool. I might go check that out later. I might go taste that later. Ready? Oops, sorry. That's after this one. Actually, this is relevant to that. When it comes to early decision versus regular decision, if you're not sure if you should apply or not, and you're feeling like nervous about it, first of all, don't feel nervous because who knows what's going to happen with early decision versus regular decision, if colleges are going to change those deadlines. Again, not stuff that you can control. But if you want to learn about that, there's another podcast for that. And I did it with a guy named Jeff Levy and Jenny Kent. And they put together a spreadsheet that maps out what are the regular decision and what were the early decision acceptance rates for the previous year. And so you can check that out. For example, I've circled here that in 2018, American accepted 85% of students or ED, early decision, and 27% of students regular decision. And they filled 43% of their class early decision. That might be interesting to know if you're interested in applying to American. Okay, so this is one part of a much larger college application list building process. The podcast tells you about some of it, and the resource that I'll send you will tell you about more of it. In other words, don't base your college decision based on this, the ED and RD acceptance rates. But it's just one more point of data for you. Okay, now here are 24 more college application resources for when the time is right. Again, I'll share with you a calendar to let you know when the time is right. All right, so let's talk first about the main personal statement. What is this? This is the college essay. This is that 500 to 650 word essay that you're going to write. That's going to be, if we imagine the activities list is all about what you've done, the main personal statement, the purpose of it is to demonstrate to colleges what are the skills, qualities, values, and interests that you're going to be bringing with you to the college campus. Okay. And some people say like, it's who you are. That's just a little bit more general way of saying that. What are the skills, qualities, values, interests that you're bringing with you? Okay. By the way, this is not meant to be a sort of analytical English essay, 5-paragraph essays where you're making a claim and then da-da-da-da. No, this is more of call it like a work of creative nonfiction. So it's about your life, but it can be creative. Some of my favorite brainstorming exercises, you don't need to look these up now, I'll share them with you, are the essence objects exercise. You can Google any of these. Feelings and needs. The everything I want colleges to know about me list, which is just like it sounds. You take a blank sheet of paper and just fill it with everything you want colleges to know about you. The 21 details exercise, which basically involves taking another blank sheet of paper. I've got so many sheets of paper, and writing down a list of 21 random things that you want colleges to know about you, or just 21 random facts about yourself. And then there's another exercise called I Love, which I want to spend a minute doing with you. And then I want to show you how it can kind of turn into an essay. Again, we're planting seeds. You do not have to write your college essay today. Let me just show you my face just for variety. So the I Love exercise works like this. And I want you to do this. If you've got somewhere to type or write, you've still got that paper nearby, go ahead and do this with me. I'm going to time you for a minute, and I want you to make a list of things that you love. Okay? So for me, if I would write this down, but I'm going to do it aloud with you. I love... Let's start the imaginary timer, starting now. I love Thai food. I miss Thai food. I love long, deep conversations. I love crying at movies. I love crying. I love weddings. I love bad wedding dancing. I love dancing. I love when my daughter dances. I love, you get what I'm doing here? So I'm just making a list. Okay. I'm like crying here with y'all. Don't know why. Okay. So here's what I want you to do. I'm going to set a timer for 1 minute. I actually have a timer here. And I want you to make a list of things that you love. And this is going to seem random, but I'm going to show you how this turns into an essay in just a minute. Okay. So 1 minute. And if you've got somebody next to you that's like watching this with you, you can just do it with them. I will start you and stop you. Okay. So you've got 1 minute. I want you to make a list of things that you love. If you don't do this, you're going to be bored. So just do it. And if you can write it, that's great. Or you can say it. Ready? What do you love? 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, cool. So I want you to pause for a second, come back. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to pick one of the things that you've listed that you love. And I want you to, on a piece of paper, sorry, I should have told you you needed paper for this. You can also just do this like typing if you want. But I want you to write at the top something that you love. So one of the things that I really love is games. So I'm writing games at the top of my paper. And then I want you to see how many different values you can connect it to. So for example, I love games. This is what I drew. And I'm drawing like what some of my students call a little jellyfish. So look at the values list. Let me just bring that up for you again. Here, let me click this. Technological wizardry means I can magically make a values list appear before you in 3, 2, 1. Okay, cool. So here's your values list. I want you to take a look at this list. And I want you to see how many values you can connect to whatever it is, that thing that you mentioned that you love. Ooh, Isabel, psychological theory. Put psychological theory at the top. So for me, for example, games, I can connect that to family, because I play a lot of games in family. I can connect it to personal development. I played a game earlier today that was good for my own personal development. Culture, I can connect it to culture. I can connect it to connection. So here's what we're doing. I just want you to make a list of different values that you can connect to your topic, whatever it is. So Gabriel, yes, do films. Gabriel, or do writing, that's another great one. Spend a minute doing this. Now, what I'll say is it's harder to do this on a college essay if the thing that you're writing about, if someone might think styles. Connect it to as many different sides of you as you can, as many different values as you can. Spend a minute doing this. Traveling, Sanvi. So traveling, what values does that help you connect? Frogs, Gianna. Put frogs here, and how many different values could you connect frogs to? Science, right? Knowledge, family, friends, I don't know. You tell me. The ocean. That would be a great one. And I'm loving yours. So the Daily Show could be a great one. I've seen a great Daily Show essay. Waffles, Chinese music and dancing. Jack, you could do sports. All right. So you guys are doing as many values as you can. You guys have got your things that you love already. What are the values that they connect to? And here's how this turns. Let me give you 20 more seconds to do this, because I want to show you how this turns into an essay. So if you haven't done this yet, again, what's something that you love or know a lot about? And then what are the different sides of you that it can connect to? Okay. The reason I want you to do this exercise is I want you to see kind of how a college essay can be built. So in some cases, an essay can be built on challenges that you face. Let me show you my face again. In some cases, you might write about a challenge that you face, and I'll give you an exercise for that in just a minute. But in some cases, you can just use something that you know a lot about, because the purpose of the essay is, again, to demonstrate the skills, qualities, and values that are important to you. Connection is really important to me. Games are a great way to connect with people. I could give you an example of that and then talk about how connection is important in my life. Or what did I write? Your family. I loved playing games with my family growing up, and I could talk to you about how my relationship to that family, my nuclear family, has changed. And now I have my chosen family that I still play games with. So that's another paragraph in my games essay. My point here is this. What's important in your essay is, yes, the topic somewhat, but what's really important is, what are these different values? What are the different sides of you that you're showing? And the reason I like picking something that you know or love is it can allow you to basically say a lot about it. One, you can like flex on something that you know a lot about. If it's like, even if it's frogs. And by the way, when these are weird, that's great. If you can make a Harry Styles essay work, that would be amazing. It's just a little bit harder to do. And then, but it's really, this is what's important. This is what colleges want to know about. Okay. So this is just like one exercise that I really love that I wanted to share with you. Okay. I use the word love a lot. Can you tell? All right. Set that aside for now. If you are writing about challenges, oops, that's the values exercise. If you are writing about challenges and you've experienced what you would term significant challenges in your life, you can map out an essay, I think, in like 15 to 20 minutes with the right questions and the right music. Go to a quiet place. If you Google this exercise, the feelings and needs exercise, you just might find your college essay topic. If you have not found, if you've not experienced challenges, this will work less well for you. But for students who have, this might be a magical door for you. Okay, you can just Google that feelings and needs exercise, or again, I'll send you the link at the end. But again, you do not have to write your college essay right now. This is just for when you're ready, probably sometime this summer. Okay, so beyond the personal statement, even though that's an important part of your application, there's this activities and awards section, which is basically your brag sheet. There are 10 spots here. Tell us all about you. Some students don't realize that there are lots of things that they do that actually count as activities. So here's a big list that's on my blog. And again, I'll stop saying that you're going to get the links. Just assume that all of this stuff you're going to get links to at the end. Okay. There's this big list that I created with a bunch of my colleagues in our Facebook group of activities that were uncommon that students put on their applications, and that were like, oh yeah, those are totally activities. Okay. So my point here is that even if you let's say you have like one or two things, you're like, I don't know, I play tennis, but like, that's about it. There are probably other things that you do that could go on your activities list. Okay. Here's some tips about how to actually express what you want on your activities list, because you'll get like blanks that are like 50 characters long, and then you've got this little description that's like 150 characters on the Common App. So I recommend that you use lists. You don't need to use complete sentences. You can use lists. Active verbs will help us get a sense of what you've done. You can show impact with specific numbers, right? And then like I said, you don't need to use complete sentences. So instead of saying like, I raised money for all the kids in Africa, right, which sometimes happens on these activities lists, you could say, for example, I arranged advertising events, organized fundraisers, ran social media, raised $2,450 for school supplies to benefit this particular school in this particular place, right? Notice those active verbs: arranged, organized, ran, raised. Oh, that gives me more of a sense of what you did. And it helps set you apart from everybody else who's done a fundraiser. There's a resource that I'll share with you on how to up-level your activities list, but those are some tips. Okay, then you've got this additional information section, which is this big blank spot on the Common App that's like, what else do you want us to know? And it's 650 words. There's a resource that I'll share with you that gives you some options about some stuff that you can put there. And it ranges from, if you have a learning difference, or if you had an injury, or you were sick and you were out of school, or you switched schools, all of those things don't have to go in your personal statement. They can just be expressed really succinctly in your additional information section. This is a good one to talk about. If you've got connection with your counselor, ask, should I put this in my additional information section? Chances are, if it gives the reader more information about your candidacy and more context, then yes. You can also, if you want, selectively expand on your significant activities. So if there's something that you've done that's awesome, but let's say the school doesn't have a supplemental essay, you can, if you want, take, let's say, an essay that you wrote. This was an essay that a past student of mine wrote. And she took that and she turned it into like a bullet point version that gave some really cool information to the schools that she applied to. So in other words, what I'm saying here is like, you don't need to put a whole separate essay in there. And in fact, you probably shouldn't, in my view, but giving the information in just straightforward bullet points can be really good. Now, I'm probably going to get some questions in the Q&A of, can I put such and such in my additional information section? And the answer is probably yes. And the guide that I share with you will answer a bunch of specific questions. But in short, this is a great thing to make use of. And the Common App, even though they haven't officially released it, is probably going to have a little thing about how was the pandemic for you? Some version of a coronavirus additional information. I suspect. I can't prove that, so don't quote me officially, even though I am talking to 2,500 people. But if there is something that happened, particularly in the pandemic, because students are going to wonder, should I talk about coronavirus in my college application? The additional information might be a good place for you to talk about it. Okay, and this is like factual, straightforward, to the point. If you want to ask me about whether or not you should talk about coronavirus in your Q&A, you may. In the Q&A, you may. All right. Besides the personal list, additional information section, which is an additional essay that might ask something like, why do you feel like you're a match for this school? Or what's something that's meaningful to you and why? Or what's a community that you're a part of? And some schools have 0 supplemental essays. Some schools have 1. Some schools have 5. So you got to look on the Common App and find out. Not all schools are on the Common App. Some schools have their own individual, but we have our own application. And then inside the application, you'll find the questions. Okay. One of the ways that you can really save time in this process, again, not now, but when it's time, is by organizing all of the prompts for all the schools you're applying to on what I call an essay tracker spreadsheet. And this is a simple spreadsheet where you can put the school, the prompt, the word limit, and the deadline. The reason I would say do that, well, there are a couple different reasons, but one of the main reasons is that you can write what I call a super essay, which is you can take 3 or 4 different prompts and you can write one essay that works for all 3 of those different prompts. Once I had a student, I wrote this at the bottom, that he wrote an essay that worked for 12 different prompts. Why do this? Because let me give you an example. If, let's say, describe a community you belong to and your place within it, that's a Michigan essay. Share a perspective you bring or experiences you've had to help us understand you better. There are a lot different schools use that one. That's kind of a general one. And why? That's an old Stanford prompt. If you read whatever it is, hiking, that describes a community you belong to because you're also part of the perspective, and something that's meaningful to you and why is hiking. If you write an essay that answers all 3 of these questions, that super essay is not only going to be like, oh, cool, I spent all my time focused on one piece of writing, that not only did it save you time, but it's going to be a better essay in many cases. All right, so this is me advocating for writing a super essay. I know I said I wouldn't say this, but I'll send you a link with more on how to do this later. All right, there are other supplemental essays. For example, the why this college, like I mentioned. Colleges, heads up, don't want to hear about their location, weather, ranking, or mascot. I put together a whole really comprehensive guide on how to write the YS essay. In short, what you're trying to do is you're making a big list of things that you have and want, like what are the values that are important to you and how do they manifest in your life? And then how do those line up with whatever the school has, the opportunities the school has? And you're just going back and forth, back and forth. This is not a why is the school so awesome? Duke knows they're awesome. Northwestern knows it's an awesome school. Davidson knows they're great. They want to know, how are you a great fit? So it's back and forth between you and them, you and them, you and them. Okay. When it comes to, sorry, I know this is a ton of information. This is why I like buffet. Step back. You can dive into this if you want. You don't have to right now. Sometimes students ask me, how do you stand out on your essays? I believe, and this is particularly important when it comes to your extracurricular essays, but I think this is true for your personal statement as well. A boring essay oftentimes chooses a common topic, makes common connections, I'll explain that in a second, and uses common language. Whereas an outstanding essay oftentimes chooses an uncommon topic, makes uncommon connections, and uses uncommon language. So just to give you a quick example, let's say my brainstorm, I was going with like football, and I'm like, okay, football is my topic. I'm circling it at the top. And the values I'm connecting it to are like hard work. What are some other common values? If we had the chat open, you would tell me. Discipline would probably come up. Teamwork, right? So let's say discipline, hard work, and teamwork. Let's say that was the basis for your essay. That football has taught you hard work, discipline, and teamwork. Do you think the reader has read this essay before? Probably, right? It's going to be really hard to stand out with a common topic and common connections. But if you can take a more uncommon topic, like someone mentioned frogs, that's weird. Give me some uncommon connections. So some common ones might be like frogs have taught me about nature. Okay. But you can take a look at that values list and you can go, what has frogs taught me about? And I'm just going to pick some random values because they're still on my screen here. What has frogs taught me about productivity? Or about listening? Or about adventure? Now, you might not immediately be able to connect frogs to all those things, but I'll bet you someone who loves frogs can. That's why I love picking things that you really know a lot about for your essay. And that frogs essay, or let's say football. If you're going to write about football, Mark, it's not the end of the world. You can do it. It's just going to be a little bit harder to stand out. But if you are, what are some uncommon connections for football? So you have about healthy boundaries. Or what has football taught you about diversity? A more interesting essay, right? I like to say to students, better ingredients, better pizza. Papa John's, that's right. Your ingredients for your essay are not necessarily, let me show you my paper here for a second. Your ingredients for your pizza, the essay pizza that you're creating, are not just your topic, football or frogs or games. These are your ingredients. And that's why I really advocate for brainstorming, trying to come up with more interesting ideas, which is to say values, connections, for what you're going to do in your paragraphs, okay? Because that's going to make it so much more interesting for us to read, okay? All right. We got about 8 more minutes before Q&A. If you're trying to brainstorm an extracurricular activity, quick, do a screenshot of this, or you can just wait for the links later. Here are the questions that you're going to want to answer probably to brainstorm an extracurricular activity essay. What did you do? Like what are the active verbs, the things you did? What problems did you solve? Which not everybody thinks about when it comes to extracurricular activities. What did you learn? What impact did you have? Who did you affect? How? And how did you connect what you learned in whatever it is, football or through photography? How did you connect that? How have you taken the lessons there and applied them elsewhere in your life? These are some really great questions to be thinking about. What is it that this thing means to me? How is it manifested in my life? This is going to explode your brain because there's way too much content. I realize that already. 5 more minutes, stay with me. There's another exercise that if you're writing about a community service essay or, like a problem that you've tried to solve, if you can identify in the first paragraph what the problem was, describe the problem, recycling. There weren't any recycling bins on campus, or, we were trying to help people connect during the pandemic. And you give us a sense of why this is an important thing. The next paragraph, why was this such a big deal? And then you give us a sense of what you did about it and what your role was in solving the problem, the lessons you learned and the impact. That's a really solid structure for one, any pitch that you want to make, but also a great extracurricular activity essay, or how have you contributed to your community? So if you're applying to the University of California schools, prompt 7 asks you to write about how you've impacted your community. You can use this structure. In fact, quick tip for the UCs, you can answer these questions in your just free write, and then you can structure your personal insight question number 7 for the University of California. This is very specific advice using this structure. The reason I call it the Elon Musk exercise is it was based on a pitch that he gave for something called the Power Wall. And there's an article written by a guy named Andy Raskin. Again, you'll get the links. I knew I couldn't resist not saying that to you. If you want to know more about the UC personal insight questions, just check out my free 1-hour guide to the UC personal insight questions. Know that they should connect back to the 14 things that the UCs are looking for, which you can find on the UC website. Did you know that there are 14 things they're looking for? Okay. For the short answers, not a lot of schools ask for short answers, but some highly selective ones do. Some of them will ask you to describe yourself like in a few adjectives. maybe don't pick the most common adjectives like passionate or friendly. Oh, I put friendly here, or adventurous, right? See if you can be a little bit, find some more words that maybe, more interesting words that maybe aren't even adjectives that still describe you. Are there interesting nouns? Like one student that I knew used the word Mulan to describe herself. So you can get creative with this a little bit. Okay, all the other things. I'm going to do just a quick fire thing, and then we're going to get to Q&A. Test scores. You're probably wondering, should I take the test? I'm probably going to get a lot of test questions in the GPA or in the Q&A. There's something called test optional admissions that's becoming very popular right now. If you want to know more about it, there's a podcast for that with a guy named Bob Schaefer, who works at a company called it's a nonprofit called fairtest.org. And they're tracking actually, I think there are more than 1,500 test optional schools now. So for updates on that, you can check fairtest.org in terms of which schools have gone test optional. There are new ones happening every day. This is a huge moving target. If you ask me a question on the Q&A on testing, I will probably say, we don't know yet. So just a heads up on that. Course rigor. When you're trying to plan your courses for next year, check in with your values. Here's another good opportunity to just check in with like, what's most important to me? Is diversity and variety important to me? Is rigor, do I really want to show them that I took the most difficult classes? Because colleges really care about that. They want to see, did you make the most of the opportunities given to you? If your school has a bunch of APs and you didn't take any of them, is that something that you want to maybe talk about in your application? I didn't want to take any APs because I wanted to spend my time doing this instead. I was running a business, or I was helping my family in particular ways, or whatever that is. If you've got a particular career that you're interested in, here are some good classes to take. This is not like a prescriptive, like you must take these classes, but these are some of the classes that schools look for. This is one of the favorite slides people like start to take pictures of. The other question that I'm going to give in the Q&A is, will we get a copy of this presentation? You'll get a copy of the recording. I will send out the recording, but I won't send out the presentation. Recommendation letters. I'm just going to leave it at, I've got a 3-part guide on how to write or how to ask for a recommendation letter. Also, I've got guides for teachers and counselors written with a bunch of teachers and counselors who were not me on how to write a great teacher recommendation letter. So that's all there. Demonstrated interest. This is something that you may not know about that might be a little eye-opening. Schools track demonstrated interest, which is to say they want to know, in some cases, how much you like them, like how likely you are to enroll. And I'm not going to go into the long explanation of why they track that, but in short, I'll give you the short explanation. Colleges have something called yield, which is like if they accept 10 students and only 3 like end up enrolling at that school, that looks bad. That's a 30% yield. And then that's tied to the school's rankings, which even though you probably shouldn't care as much about rankings as you do, maybe none of us should, colleges do because people do. And so if their yield is bad, their rankings go down. But if you're a school like Stanford and you accept 10 students, like 8 of those are bound to say yes because they got a really high yield. And that is tied to their rankings. Now, should that be tied to rankings? That's a whole separate conversation. And if you want to know more about rankings, you can Google your annual reminder to ignore the US News and World Report rankings. I think they're an okay way to learn about schools, but not don't base your college decision based on those. But if you're wondering, some schools care about demonstrated interest and they track it and they say they track it, and others not so much, or they say they don't. You can find out who does by just Googling the school's name and just type in the words common data set. And if you scroll down to section C7, you'll see this. For example, Harvard, level of applicants' interest, this is the demonstrated interest part, we do not consider it. It is not a factor in their admission decisions. Okay, so Harvard doesn't care how much you care. Whereas a school like Bates, level of applicants' interest, important. More than being considered, it's actually important. So Bates cares how much you care. So I put together this little guide, as you might imagine, that's got 13 ways you can demonstrate interest in order of the college process. A 2-minute thing like getting on the school's email list, to actually opening those emails, because yes, they track that, to attending a virtual college fair, etc. So you can kind of decide how deep you want to go with that. Again, not to be done right now. This is like summertime stuff. And I'll skip that one. That's I mean, it's basically how do you build a relationship with the rep? That'll be in the links I sent you. When it comes to interviews, not something you have to worry about for like 6-8 months from now. But again, you can go onto the common data set to see how much the school cares. about that. That's on the thing I just showed you. And then you can create what's called a message box, which is like, here are 3 to 4 things I definitely want to make sure that I hit in the interview. And that's about all that I want you to walk into an interview with, is like those ideas in mind. 3 to 4 things, because you don't need to memorize like a whole page of something that you're going to, like a monologue or something. But those, once you've written your essays, though, that I think writing your essays, writing and planning those is your best preparation for the, for your interview. And this is how in-depth the table of contents is for my interview guide. It's all on the website. It's all free. Thank you, student loans, for getting me through college. I don't think I can ever repay you. So on a different podcast with the same people I mentioned earlier, Jenny Kent and Jeff Levy, we talked about this resource that they put together, which is a different spreadsheet they created from the early decision one. And this one is about which schools are most generous with financial aid for US and then for international students. And it tells you what the average aid award was and what percentage of students ended up getting them. Will that potentially change this year? We don't know. Can we control that? No. What can we control? Developing a great list of colleges, focusing on putting your values into your activities list, into your additional information section, into your personal statement. Here are the things that we can control, right? I suddenly feel calmer just thinking about what the things I can control, and then just being aware of what schools have done in the past. Another data point, great. And then there's also, by the way, there's a podcast with Joan Liu for financially for international students. So if you are a high need international student, like you definitely need money to go to school, there's whole other podcast on that with Joan. And it looks like this, Adelphi, here's the total cost of attendance, how many people are enrolled there. Here's the percentage of need that they met. So Amherst meets 100% of need, right, if they accept you. Percentage receiving merit aid, 0, might be interesting to know. Anyway, I don't need to go through this. You can read this on your own based on that podcast. If you're writing a transfer essay, this is probably a small percentage of folks, but here are the step-by-step guides, and you'll find a resource. If you just Google how to write a successful transfer essay, I've got a whole guide on that. So I won't spend a ton of time on that right now. Okay, we did it. That's like some of the resources that I've worked on over the last few years. But hopefully some of those are useful. All right, here's my 30-second PSA for my summer courses. June 11th through July 12th, I'm leading a course online. It'll be like this. And I'm going to walk you through everything you need to write your personal statement. And by the end, you're going to have a pretty solid draft because, hey, we're going to take like 3 weeks to do it. Then I'm going to segue right into how to write your college application, all the different pieces we've talked about, supplemental essays, blah, 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 July 9th through the 30th. So by the end of the summer, my hope is that you've at least got your application done for like your early schools. Now, wait, Ethan, but some of the schools don't release their topics until August. Yes, you're not going to finish everything because some of the topics won't be out yet. But some of the pieces that you're writing, like your extracurricular activity essay, your Why Us essays, some of those are going to stay the same. And you can start researching and working on those. These are, I want to just underscore this, these are pay what you want, pay what you can. In other words, nobody's ever going to be turned away in terms of cost. My core values is access. So anybody can sign up. That's why I feel okay like selling this. Okay, that's my 30-second PSA. I hope you'll join me. I'd love to see some of y'all on that. Coming up next, I'm going to start a little how to finish your college. God, I changed the name. It was how to start your college essays this summer. Now I'm suddenly promising how to finish your college essays this summer. Can I do that? I will talk. We're going to start college essays on this webinar. You're not going to finish them in that webinar, but I will show you how to finish your essays. I'll give you a little plan for doing it, a little outline, and I'll email you details. I'm also going to send you a recording of this webinar plus 50 plus college application resources. Let me just show you what those look like right quick, and then we're going to Q&A it up. Dev, you can go ahead and open the Q&A and let the Q&A flood begin. The other thing I promised is like a timeline. Again, I'll email this to you. But if you're wondering what the heck you should be doing right now, here's a little timeline I put together. And it maps out, even if you're in 9th grade or 10th grade, some stuff to be working on. And then it gets more specific with 11th grade. Athletic recruitment, fine arts students, performing arts students, winter and spring. So it maps it out kind of by season. So anyway, that's that. The link that I'm going to send you is my college application hub, which is just like most of the stuff that I just talked about mapped out for you. So I put this at the top. This is like one of my favorite guides and resources. So I'll send you the link to this and you can scroll through and see all the brainstorming exercises that I mentioned. Yeah, all the things. Okay. That's what I got. Q&A. All right, what do you got? We got 10 minutes. Perfect. Thanks for staying on. Thanks for staying with me, friends. All right. My brother Devin we've got a Google Doc that's separate from this that I'm going to be looking at because he's going to paste some of that because it's hard for me to sometimes read all the questions as they come in. Ta-dum, pa-dum, pa-dum. All right, bringing up my Google Doc, my trusty Google Doc. Let's see what we got coming in. Whoops. And this is also a chance for you just to like write some stuff. All right, here we go. All right, what questions have you got? Oh no, Google Docs logged me out. All right, logged back in. Sorry. All right, you know what? While that's doing that, let me just there we go. All right. Rishi says, when deciding majors and essentially mapping out futures, should we lean towards our values or lean towards where we think opportunities will lie? Oh, that's such a good question, Rishi. Oh my gosh. That's in the running for top favorite question. Okay, I have a sneaky answer to this, Rishi. I don't know that they're disconnected. So your values, so when you see where you see the opportunity lying, I have a feeling when you talk about opportunity that you're talking about different values. So my question to you, Rishi, I'm going to do an annoying thing and answer the question with a question. But in terms of the opportunities, what values do those line up with? In other words, let's say, for example, I want to be an artist, but the opportunities lie in, being a programmer. Well, one of my core values might be like stability, financial stability. And so I got to look at that. Is this a perfect process where you're going to be like, oh, therefore this one value? I don't think we choose careers based on one value. We're sort of looking at the constellation of values and going, okay, based on all these things, based on the things that I love and the things that I'm good at, what's a career that might match up with me? So what I would say is, I think they're connected. I don't think it's an either or. And I think taking that all into account is important. And my favorite resources are the ones that I mentioned. I think science might be a fun one for you, Rishi. Samantha, if you had a challenge, like mental illness, is it better to make that into your main essay or just your additional statement? So I would say, Samantha, talk to your counselor about this. So here's my quick take on mental illness. One, it's become a somewhat common topic. Weirdly, like students who've experienced many range of things will write about this. And so it's a little bit harder to stand out, weirdly. Second, sometimes if a student writes about mental illness in a certain way, the college will worry, do we have the resources to support this student? The main question I want to ask you is like, do you feel like this is the best way to show your skills, qualities, interests, and values? Because there might be a whole different way to do it that's going to show much more range. And you could include a very short description of like, here's the thing I experienced, here's what I did about it, and here's what I learned through the experience, and boom, you've done that. But I would say talk to your counselor, and I would say probably map out two different options for your personal statement. So here's the one that focuses on that. See how that goes, see how that feels, use the feelings and needs exercise. And then I would say brainstorm a couple different topics so you can have options. And then if you've got a counselor or somebody that has read a bunch of essays, say, hey, here are the 3 or 4 ideas that I'm thinking of. What do you think? If I knew you better and we had other ideas, or if we had more time, I would help you decide, but I unfortunately don't. So I would say, try and brainstorm with ideas, because sometimes students, like, that's the first idea they have. And it's like by generating all those other ideas, they can come up with better options. So I'm just advocating for keep going, keep thinking of other options. Natalie, okay, let me do some lightning round. Are you wearing khakis? No, I'm not. Pam, I love my volunteer work, I have a great reference, but is another letter overkill if volunteer work is addressed in application already? Find out from the individual schools, Pam. Every school is going to be different. Some will be like, yeah, you can send another one, and some will be like, definitely don't, then definitely don't. Colin, as an LGBT youth, inclusivity and equality are majorly important for me. How do I bring this up in college applications without just saying it? It really is one of the key deciding factors I'm using, and I want to make it both evident and unique. Awesome. Colin, so I have a bunch of sample essays on my site, and some of those emphasize inclusivity and equality in really cool ways. And I also have a separate set of like 6 to 8 essays written by students who identified as LGBTQ, and it talks about what are the 4 qualities of a great essay and how do you bring those into the essay. So things like inclusivity and equality are some of the themes of those essays. I would say go to that post. Just Google LGBTQS. Actually, Google, should I come out in my personal statement or not? College essay guy. And there's like a 2-part guide. One part is like, should I come out in my essay? And the other one is like, here are some great example essays. Sui, how can you give all this away for free? So grateful. It's amazing. This is what I love to do, Sui. It gives me so much joy. I like to believe that I'm helping people because I can. Anne Frank, I think, once said, or she was quoted as saying, no one would ever went poor